All right, in our SketchUp tutorial today, we're going to talk about making some custom windows that are for a thicker wall. So for example, this client needed to have some window frames that were set into a 9-inch wall with the window set back a little bit. And so in this case, we're going to be making the actual component that cuts through the walls of this particular window. So let's get started. First of all, we need to draw a rectangle. So a lot of people will want to use the rectangle tool, but since we're using dimensions, it's actually easier to draw using the pencil. So go ahead and click, move your cursor along the green axis. We're going to type in 68.75, and that'll create a line that's 68 3/4 inches long. Because we clicked, moved, and clicked, you'll see that we have a continuous line that we're drawing. If we click and drag, it makes a single segment. But if you click, move, and click, you'll get this. Move down the red axis and type in 32. We can then move back down the green axis where we can type the dimension again, 68 3/4, or we could hover over the original endpoint and then bring our cursor over until it hits the green axis again. You'll see the dotted red line is an inference telling us that we're at the same place, I guess, as the original endpoint. Click, and then go to the original endpoint and click again. When your surface fills in, this means that you have a completed series of edges, and when you close those, you actually get a surface. So the next tool we're going to use is the offset tool. So you'll hover over the inside of this rectangle, click, and then move in towards the center. We want to type 0.75 for 3/4 inch. Go ahead and hit the space bar, which chooses the select tool. Make sure that the center is selected and hit delete. Now we need to extrude this frame up into 3 dimensions. So we'll use the push-pull tool, and the shortcut for that is P. Again, you're going to click, move up, and then type in 9.5 for inches. Again, you're not going to click and drag, but you're going to click, move up the blue axis, and click again. All right, so this is our frame box, and we need to temporarily group this because we're going to be making some windows on the inside. So hit the space bar, and then you can triple click. When you triple click, all of the connected edges are included. Right click, and then choose group. We're just going to group it for now because we're going to actually go back and break that apart later. So now we need to get some tape measure. You need to use our tape measure tool to create some guidelines. So I'm going to click and head down the green axis, but hover over the top edge of this box. And I'm looking for the midpoint, and it will snap to it. It's not giving us a blue circle like it normally does with a midpoint because this is grouped. It's actually now part of a group. So we wait until we find that little purple dot there in the middle, click. I'm going to zoom in, and I need to pull another guideline over 3/4 inch and another one towards us at 3/4 inch. And that is actually going to be the area that our window overlaps. So when we have the two sections of window, they're going to overlap by 1.5 inches. I can then choose the eraser tool and click to remove the middle one. Now I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and what I'm going to do here is to create a rectangle that is eventually going to become that panel of windows. It doesn't matter how big this is. Okay, just be careful. You don't want to go along the side there. If you pull out towards the middle, you'll see that it's actually creating one on a horizontal plane. We can then use our move tool to go in and actually pull this edge over. However, when I chose the move tool and hovered over this box, you can see it's actually selecting the box, not that rectangle. So I need to use my select tool and select the edge, then use the move tool, and I need to move this along the green axis. If it does some weird stuff like this, you're not on the green axis. You want to make sure that if you pull down the green axis, that green line appears. Once you lock into that, hold the shift key, and then you can actually come hover over this guideline. Okay? I like to actually go up to the top here where the guideline intersects with the other edge, and that's a little bit better. All right, now to select this other edge, hit the space bar again, click on the edge. You can use your shortcuts now, so press M for move, click, and you want this one to go along the red axis. And so hold down that Shift key, and in this case I'm going to zoom out so I can see that corner, and I'm going to click on the corner. What that does is it makes sure that that edge is actually up against this particular side of the box. That looks good. Now we can start working on the actual panel. So the first thing I want to do is make an 1.5" frame around this. So I'm using my offset tool, which is F for a shortcut. You can click and then move in and type 1.5 and hit enter. Now I need to push-pull this up into a little bit thicker unit. So I'm going to click, move that up the blue axis and type 0.75 and hit enter. Right. Now I want to divide this into 4 panes. And there are several different ways that you can do this, but I find one of the easiest is just to use the pencil tool. Hover on this edge until you find the blue dot, which is your midpoint. Click. Be sure and go down the green axis. Hold down your Shift key to lock. And then hover over a corner, maybe over here. That's easiest. Then if I hover on this other side, I can see that there's a midpoint. Click, move across on the red axis. And then I can use the Shift key again and even hover over one of these corners to make sure that it's going to run right into that frame. Okay, so there's our panel. Now, the next thing we want to do is divide this into 4 panes, but with some little white mullions between them. So to do that, I'm going to use my offset tool again. I'm going to bring this in and just kind of eyeball it until that looks good. Before I do anything else, I want to move to the next panel, double click, and double click. It should give you duplicate panels on each one, so this is important. If it doesn't do that, I would just undo and try it again. Now, very quickly before we go forward, I'm going to show you one more trick. So I'm going to undo, but don't undo yours. There is another trick with the line tool I recently learned, where if you hover over a line and right-click, you can choose divide. If you hover with your cursor, you can actually divide this line segment into 3 sections. And then with your line tool, you can go ahead and click, and then go find that endpoint, go down the green axis, and then click on that, and then divide this into 9 panels if that's what you want to do. So again, you would hover over this edge, click divide, and then you could divide that into even 2. And then go across, hold your Shift key, and click on the corner. All right, so that's one other way that you could do it. Again, you just use your offset tool, click on all of them, and then go back with your eraser, which is an E, and then delete these little crosses in the middle. Okay, so it's just kind of up to you what it is that you want to do, but this is one way that you can create one that has different numbers of segments. Again, I'm going to go back, start fresh again, come up 3/4 of an inch, and in this case, I'm simply going to do the 4 panels. Okay, use my offset tool. F is the shortcut. Okay, come out here, double click, double click, double click. Press E for your eraser and click on that cross in the middle and you'll get rid of all of them. Now we need to use the push-pull tool to bring this up just a tiny bit. We want these mullions to be on top. And now we need to color them. You'll see that we want these mullions to be white, but then the panes of glass to be clear. The easiest way to do that is to choose your paint bucket. It's going to bring up the window with your colors and materials. You want to choose colors, find white. Then we want to paint these. But notice if I just click on individual things, there's still other things that weren't painted white. So I'll show you another trick. Hit the space bar, triple click, and it'll select everything here except for this box, because remember we grouped the box originally. Go over to your colors, click white, and then use your paint bucket to paint the whole thing white. Okay. Now you want to hit the space bar and then deselect by clicking over to the right. We'll now go to the translucent materials, and we're looking for this blue right here. And we want to basically paint those 4 panes. So as you can see, we painted the whole thing white and then came back and painted the panes. Another thing to pay attention to is sometimes when you're doing this, it doesn't paint the back side. So I used my Orbit tool to go underneath, choose the transparent, and go ahead and paint those panes transparent as well. All right, so we now have the panel of windows that we want for the top. Next, we need to duplicate this and move it to the bottom. So I need to triple click, 1, 2, 3, right click, and I'm going to make this a group. Now I need to move a copy of this over, so I'm going to situate it in my window where I can see it. I'm going to zoom in on this corner using my scroll wheel on my mouse. I want to choose the Move tool. And remember that if you toggle with the Option key, you'll see there's a little plus sign there. You can then click and then move along the green axis until you reach this guideline right here. So the intersection of the guideline and the window. All right, now these are right on top of each other, so we actually need to move this up the blue axis. If you want, you can rotate around to take a look, get a better look. But then I'll use my Move tool again. This pane is selected, so I click on it, move it up, and I know this is 3/4 of an inch thick, so I'm going to type in 0.75 and hit Enter. And now we have both panels of our window. Okay, the sashes. So that is pretty much making our window. Now we need to do a little bit of housekeeping here, which is to clean up these lines. So you can use your eraser tool and then just click and drag across both to get rid of them. If you don't get rid of your guidelines, they will end up in your final window. And every time you place a window, you'll get 2 guidelines. So get rid of those. Now the other thing we need to do is we need to explode the 2 panels in the middle. So we're going to select one, right click and explode. Select the other, right click and explode. You'll notice when we did that though that the panes of glass turned back white. So go ahead and grab your paint bucket, paint those transparent again. It's just a quirk within SketchUp. Check the bottom, everything looks good. And now our window is ready to turn into a component. All right, so at this point, we'll go ahead and we're going to triple click. And when we do that, we notice that this outside box is not selected, so we need to break that apart too. So go ahead and click on it, right click and explode. Now all of the pieces are broken apart. So go ahead and triple click, right click, and we're going to make this a component. First, we're going to call this window and give it a descriptive name like 68.75 by 32. In the description, you can say maybe this is a window cuts through 9-inch wall. Next, we need to choose the glue to option, which is to glue to any surface. Okay, this could be only vertical, but we're going to say any surface. We want to cut the opening, so go ahead and click on that checkbox for cut opening. We're going to replace the selection with component, but then we need to do one more thing. And you'll see that there is an axis right here on this window. And this axis is actually showing that the plane that this window is going to glue to is on this back part. So if you were to take this window now and put it on a house, it's going to stick out from the wall 9.5 inches. So we need to change this. So click Set Component Axes. We're going to scroll in on this front corner, click, move your cursor along this right-hand part where the red axis is. Now move it over to the left hand. This is going to set the green axis. And then when we're done, go ahead and click Create. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and replace it since I already had one that was named that. Now we can go ahead and click and delete to get rid of that window. And let's draw a wall. Let's make something that we can use. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to create a large rectangle and use the offset tool again. We're going to type 9, enter. We're then going to use the push-pull tool to go 96 inches tall. And that is our little room that we can apply our window to. Okay, we do know that the wall is 9 inches because we created it that way. And then we're going to go over to our components window and use the window. If you don't see the components window, go up to the window menu and then choose components. And the one that we just created was this one. The window 68 3/4 by 32 cuts through a 9-foot wall, 9-inch wall. Click on this component, and then when you move your cursor away, you'll see that the component is attached. Go ahead and place your window on the wall, and you'll notice that it actually cuts through the wall. So that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and copy this one, so I'll use the Move tool. I'm going to hover over this end point here, press the Option key, and then move this along the red axis. Remember, you can hold down the Shift key to force it to stay in that axis, and then click again. So there I have two perfect little windows, or at least it seems that way, until you rotate to the back and you see that they didn't cut all the way through the wall. Now this is something I've noticed a bit with walls within SketchUp, but there's a quick fix to this, or if you ever find a window that doesn't cut all the way through. Remember that this wall area that we created is exploded, so it's not a group. You want to click on this particular wall, zoom in, hold down your Shift key, and click the window component that we added. Now go ahead and click the other one too, so we have 3 things selected: the wall, not the wall, but the surface, and then the 2 windows. Right click, and then choose Intersect Faces with Selection. Now if you click on this, just remember we have our selection tool, you can click on the wall or these areas inside the window. You'll see that it divided it into 3 different sections. Go ahead and click on this middle area and hit the Delete key. Click on this one and hit the Delete key. Now if we rotate around, sometimes there will be a section of wall in front of this window as well. But you can see here that this one actually did perform perfectly, and that's exactly what we wanted it to do. So that is the end of this lesson on creating a custom window. Hope you enjoy.